Welcome to the More Business, More Life TV. I'm excited as always to have the guests that I have on here. And before I introduce our guest today, just a reminder, this show is about how can we prosper in this changing times and what are the things that we can do different. And today will be no different. We'll explore what have been the challenges and the ways that we're working to overcome those. And then just a reminder to everyone, I'm still doing at least usually once or twice a month. I'm doing a webcast. I've got one coming up next week where I go and open it up for Q&A and go live and just to discuss what we can do in your business or in your career right now to make a difference in 2020. So my team will put the link there if you want to register for that. And then let's get right to it. So today's guest is Chris West. And he is with Video Narrative, and he's become a really good friend of mine. Love you to death, brother. And I'm so excited to have you on the show. We've been trying to work at this for a little while, but we finally made it happen. So I'm happy to have you here, brother.
Heck yeah. It's so good to be with you, Steve. Seriously.
And I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of ground. I'm going to try to. I'm just looking at my questions here, but I think I want to cover about your business and a couple of different things that you've done. But I kind of want to start with this question that I've been starting with is, when you noticed that this wasn't going to pass quickly, when you started to realize, oh, wow, this is a marathon, not a sprint. What became most important to you when you noticed that, okay, we got to work at this?
Relationships in general, all the way. I think in business, like in any situation, I just fell back on what's the way that I can create value and trust and help with people. But I will say, I don't know, 2020 is literally one of the best years of my entire life. So it's been a situation where everything, mindset, spirituality, everything had led me to a place where I was seeing the possibility and the ownership that I get to take in every moment. And with that, it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to say, like, what parts can I control? What parts are outside of my control? And let me focus every single day on the parts of things that I can control. And yeah, it's created this incredible fertile ground for transformation, unlike we've seen in years, especially in our business. I think it's so many people, it forced us all to go way inward and say, like, what do we have to change? And then it's been an incredible ride. I know that's not common.
And
people always think.
Go ahead.
I'm at these, like, we're like a get together. We're like all have masks on, and people are like, "How you doing?" I'm like, it's like the best year of my life, and they're like, "What? Do you know how many people are suffering right now?" I'm like, mm-hmm. Right, but like, there's so much possibility in the middle of moments like this.
It's so important and I know how much you care about other human beings. It's like, like when I think of Chris West, I don't think of somebody that's taking advantage or any of those things. So I know how much you care about other people. So it's not about, saying, like, if someone says, oh, do you know how other people are suffering? It's not about that. Like, I heard, oh man, I forget who it was, but one person was giving a speech about someone getting a new car, and then they saw a homeless person, then they felt guilty. But then the person asked them, they said, well, if you didn't get this new car, that homeless person would miraculously be okay. It doesn't, it's not going to be that shift. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to do you could do something about it, but it's not going to be not having the car for yourself, so taking care of you. And then I know what you do for your business, you're taking care of others. So I love the word that you said, like relationships and connecting with others. Because if I look at the two things that I've seen, folks that are having years like you, it's been that we've changed our value, or if you want to call it, like in business, call it the value proposition. And that's changed due to the conversations. How can we help the people that we're talking to, and what shifts do we need to make to help those people? And I guess just to bring it back to a simple thing, and then I'll bring it back to a question to you. When my kids ask me, what is business, Dad? Then I say, business is how we help others. And this is my interpretation of business. And I say, so how are you going to help someone else? And if you help them, then you'll get rewarded for that help. And that's why I know that's through and through. That's in every blood cell in your body that you live that. So I guess with this success, maybe if you can highlight what has been the biggest thing that's propelled this? Because I know there's been challenges that you overcame, and we'll get to that. But just to highlight, the success for a moment, maybe share a little bit about that first.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that it allowed, and I think this is for anybody watching, right? It allowed this ability to like really ask yourself what is vital and what's not. So we had a very beautiful studio. We had workshops there every 6 weeks. It was a high, like really it was a big cost on the expense sheet. And we moved out and we realized that our team does phenomenal working virtually, right? And remotely. So I got this huge cost like down all of a sudden, right? And then it was like, what can I do with this extra income? And so we lowered our costs across like every level, as well as just listening to our clients. Like, what are you dealing with? What are you struggling in? Like, just asking what's going on in their lives. And with some of them, we stumbled upon this reality that, especially I work with professional speakers, thought leaders, that it used to be very hard to plan an event. You would have to spend 6 months getting people together, the hotel reservation, like everything. But all of a sudden now virtual was possible. And you could, if you had the right plan in place, help someone go from, we want you to do a presentation, to say, what are you trying to achieve? And then say, it would be better if we do a 4-part virtual session where the first part I'm going to for sure be inspirational. We're going to create a shared language, but there's extra steps that will get you to the results you want. And when we would build plans with clients, we had people literally go from a 3,500 virtual keynote to like $40,000 packages because they were helping companies achieve a result rather than just giving a keynote. And a lot of our
Right.
clients who were installing this were creating new revenue models they had never seen before, as well as making a greater impact on their clients and the people that they were helping. And of course, they needed new videos to showcase what they were doing, which influenced us. And so all of a sudden, there was all this opportunity and way less on the cost, the hard costs, right? So like we will have a less like on the high level, right? On the gross level, our revenue will be down this year. But because our costs are so much lower, we'll have a more profitable year. And that's there's just opportunity in everything. And I think us really just doing the listening tours, really asking people what they needed, and then finding these opportunities, because we were looking for them as if this wasn't like the worst thing ever, but like, wow, that studio just went away. What else can we do? We just started seeing
Yeah.
opportunity everywhere.
And the reality is those opportunities became apparent, not because they didn't exist before. They actually were there. Like you could have got rid of, but it was what was accepted as well. Because I'm seeing the same where people were like, no, we're not going to do virtual. And then now now it's like forced to, and now everyone's seeing, oh wow, I can accomplish the same thing. Like for our events, we decided not to cancel any event. We had to quickly shift them all to virtual and try to keep everything engaged. We didn't want to lose the energy of the event. And I feel like we accomplished that. But now, even when we move to having people gather again, we're going to for sure do a hybrid from now on. Like basically in my plan with my business, I'm going to keep the ticket price the same. And then if you want to pay for your own airfare and all that to come be with me, then I'll need to know they're coming. So I'll have to have some kind of like little VIP upgrade or whatever, just so I know if I'm going to buy food or any of that kind of stuff, because you've ran events. But then other than that, I could have a hybrid. Why wouldn't I? Because now you'll love this, Chris. We've had several of our events. I've had people in Australia, people here. So when we had our meal break, Australians were having breakfast. We're having lunch here in California. And then on the East Coast, like we had someone in Puerto Rico, they're having their dinner. So during the meal break, we literally had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time because we were truly a global event. It was like fun. So I know what you're saying. And I guess the thing I want to point out is that you were willing to see things differently. I think that's the big thing. It's like, okay, what can we do? And I'll bring it to one last story, and then we'll do. Is that I know as a filmmaker, you'll get this, Chris, because when I was a filmmaker, there would be things we'd have in the script, and we'd want to make it into the video. And then when I realized that we didn't have the budget for what was it written in the script, then I thought, oh, we're not going to be able to do that. But those scenes, there's a few of them I can remember in my mind right now. They were actually the best. They were better because we didn't have the budget. We actually found another way to tell that part of the story without the grandiose budget. And I think in several cases they were better because we were forced, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's what this year did to everybody. It forced every one of us to look at things. And the truth is that perspective is everything. And I would so love in our conversation, Steve, for us to focus on like the now, right? Like I actually have I feel like I don't even want to go back and thinking. I want to stay like, because now I would say this, it's like for me, the fourth quarter of this year when our show is being recorded, and especially going into 2021, it's like, what's the way to do it? Because you sent out an email this week and it said you've probably done one of two things. Either you've seen like a lot of like downsizing in your industry or your company, and it's just been like really hard, or you've been working like nonstop because you've been trying to deal with how much new scale came with what you did. And
yeah,
I was working, right, like nonstop. My wife said to me in June, she's like, "Hey, Chris, did you know that trauma, like a form of trauma response, is productivity?"
yeah,
And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "I don't know. Just think about it." Right. But it was like, when you're the CEO of a company and you're about to go under, and literally like everyone, 80% of our contracts went like 100% on like 1 week went on pause. Like maybe we'll start
yeah.
again, maybe we won't, but we're stopping all payments. It was like, what are we going to do? Right. Like I think everyone had their form of that. And I just went into like go, and like go mode. Like, what do I have to do? And I went quickly into like, let me go and serve and let me go find out what people need. And I just asked people like, what are you doing? But now it's like, okay, I have to reshape the profile of my ideal week, because for way too long, I got into the habit of like working throughout the day. And then I put my kids down and I went back to work for 2 more hours. Right. And it's now shifting. Like, and that's where I'm really interested in talking about, is like the now, because I feel like most people have been doing so much work for so long now that it's like, I'm wondering what your thoughts are in that, because that's like I
Well,
don't mean to shift the questions, but I'm just really motivated by the now.
well, no, and it's perfect, and it is in line. I mean, the questions I usually typically have here. The thing that intrigues me, though, that I would like to know, and we can go back in a moment, and I'll answer your question. But is was there any hesitation? But knowing you, maybe there wasn't, because you acted like I did. So I did the same thing, and you know me, how much I'm about life. This is the show, more business, more life. Well, I got back from Africa. I was speaking in Namibia, came back on March 8th, and everything was shut down. And then I did go into action and I started working more. And then I started to realize, hey, I'm still having time with my family. I didn't realize how much time I was spending in cars and planes. And then that was all gone. So I was able to work more. And this is the first time in years that I was working like 5 days a week. And I do remember in March, I even worked like half days on Saturdays recording new videos. And so I did pour it on. And I'm so grateful that I went on that trip to Africa and Europe, because I had the energy. I had just taken a big break. So back to your point, though, I'm in the same thing. I don't know if I'll be able to grab it easily. Oh, here it is, right here on this clipboard. I've been like mapping out new weeks. I'm just making like a schedule of how I can fit this all in and not work 5 days a week, because it's starting to actually bear on me. And I know other people are like, 5 days a week? Oh, what are you talking about? But no, it makes a difference in my being when I don't get enough time off. And I've already noticed it. So I even been starting like you, Chris. I'm trying to figure out, okay, now this has happened. I did activate. And now it's time to get it into the space that I need it so that I can live my life. And it actually allows me to make better decisions, because there's going to be like a human being can run like a 90-day sprint. Maybe you can do 2 of those. So that'll be like 6 months. We're getting well past that. And now we're going to
Yeah.
start getting to fatigue. And no matter how much change you're trying to make, if you're just continually working, it's not sustainable. You can do a sprint, but you can't do a marathon at a sprint speed level for very long.
That's
So I
exactly
guess, what
right.
are you doing now to maintain this change and start getting more life back? I guess is that because that's what you're exploring right now, right?
Yeah. So everything is counterintuitive, right? In terms of bef- when you take breaks, you get more ideas, and you actually, less work you do sometimes, the better your work becomes. And so, I mean, number one, reshaping my ideal week. And I just had to let my team know and everything. I'm a big fan of, like, I do it on like a Google, like there's a spreadsheet where I actually do create the exact ideal week. And then I share with my team, and it's like, literally, if you see this block, this is unavailable. Like, not available for any conversation, not available for a question. Like, I have these set times where you can ask me that, or we'll have a call the next day. If it's urgent, text me or something. But otherwise, ask me. And like, I had everyone in our company reshape their ideal week, because we've just been going nonstop, and everyone's been like, I'm so glad I'm working. I'm so glad we still have paychecks. I'm so glad, like, what do we have to do? We've had like this very team feel where everyone's been working nonstop. But this week on Monday, I announced to everyone, I'm like, we can't keep this pace up. And I, as like the leader of the company, I like can't keep this pace up. So every one of our clients will understand when we say, I shortened my days where I only am working for clients, from 10 to 4. And I have a gap, an hour for lunch. I have a gap in the morning. I have a gap in the afternoon. I don't work on Mondays and Fridays for clients. So I have these spaces. And if it doesn't fit that week, it has to go the next. And if it doesn't fit that week, it has to go the next. And they're like, I just paid this money and I can't talk to Chris for 3 weeks. And it's like, it's like, I don't know. People understand when it's positioned correctly. And it's now I'm living like we talk about. And Steve, I learned this, in a great way from you and this show. Like, I'm going to build the business around my ideal life. I'm not doing it the other way around. I'm not trapped in that.
Right. And then those are the wow clients that understand that positioning and are willing to have that, I'm 100%. I've always said this: design your life and then build your business or career around that. It's the opposite of the way that we were brought up. A lot of us, it was taught to go make money and then you'll have your life. And it doesn't work that way. You'll show up, you'll be running on that treadmill at level 10, and then you'll be like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. And that's exactly what happens. So I think it's exactly right. And then you can figure out how to give that value to a client. One, you can tell them, hey, we can't start your project till this date. Is that okay? And two, you find the things. So like one thing that we've had to do is I had to bring on more coaches. So I've actually hired more people this year because we needed to be high touch. Because we were going virtual, I needed to be on the phone more. And guess what? Steve can't do all that. So I got 2 other success coaches now. So there's 3 of us making all those phone calls. And and then in that I did lower some prices at the beginning, but then I raised them back up because I brought on more team members and we're getting more nurturing. So it's again by design, to your point, so it comes to what it is that we want, and then you build around that. But if you were to deny yourself of that, Chris, then everyone would lose, because at a certain point you would be done. Like, it would no longer serve you. It has to be win-win. I believe that so much to my bone. If Chris is losing and the company's losing and the clients win, that is not sustainable. So then you're going to lose the whole thing. And the opposite, if the client's losing and Chris is winning, then the same thing would happen. It would not last. So you're creating a lasting experience. And if someone's not willing to wait 3 weeks, they're probably not the right client. And we can all have so many clients anyway, like, at any one point as we scale, right? That can grow more. Right. So I guess I'm curious, because you're right. Let's focus on this. This might not be for everyone. Some of you might still be stuck and figuring out what to do. So one, look at the new perspective, like Chris is bringing up. But then two, those of you that have been working hard, and this is the week, right? So you chose to do it. And the last 4 weeks, I've been really trying to retool how we're going to work together. So we're right in the same mix of it. I'm curious, like, what spawned this decision? Did you just like wake up and say, I'm done with this? Or like, what, if we zoom in on that moment that you decided to fix your calendar, what was it?
Well, I don't know. I'm just wondering if everyone else is feeling what I'm feeling right now, which I think everyone is. I mean, most people aren't completely aware, and they can look up. They just look up like Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto online and just see that there's a lot of people who study the way that the universe works around us right now in the galaxies. Like, there is this energy in planets right now that hasn't existed in like the last 700 plus years. And I work with this Chinese doctor who's this incredible, brilliant astrologist. She's like, I stopped after 700 years because I've been at it for so many days. I couldn't look any further back. There is this energy on our planet right now where, plutonium is this plutonic explosive energy. There's a Saturn, which is this planet. The reason they named the planets gods in the old days is they knew the energy that they gave off when they came close to the Earth, right? And there's Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, and they're just lined up in direct, a 4 degrees radius off, which is like unheard of. This line going towards our planet right now, and it's creating this like basically platonic or explosive energy for people, right? And so it's very transformational. We're all like kind of caught up in it, not realizing how much it's affecting us. We're seeing it though every day, right? For anyone who watches the news, I don't. And probably one of the reasons I'm so happy is I don't watch the news like ever. And people are like, how do you know what's going on? It's like, someone will tell me if it's really important because I'm focused on my sphere of influence. Like, who can I make a difference for and what impact am I here to make? Anything outside of it, whether we have a really unjust Supreme Court now, that doesn't affect me. It does, and I'm getting way off topic. Sorry, Steve, but there's this energy, right? And so people have been feeling it for a long time, and I've been feeling it. We've been going at such a fast pace because of the explosive energy going on that I can't keep this pace, right? I'm feeling very burned out because I've been going at such a strong pace for so long. And now the question is, what's the new sustainable way that I can reshape my life? And it's counterintuitive because there's a lot of fear involved. What if I take on less clients? How will I make the same revenue? Blah, blah, blah. But I can feel how burned out I am if I keep this pace for any longer. And so the question is, okay, if I'm feeling this much, it's time to reshape everything. And so the profile of the ideal week, that's like what I'm reshaping. It's like, how do I want my days to go? And then how can I transition? It might take 3 weeks or 4 weeks for it to fully take place. Like, how can I transition into it? I literally just changed a part in our proposals that said, usually our process starts 3 weeks after right? Just to leave this sort of bandwidth. And then in our onboarding conversations, we talk about the homework we want to give you and the preparation we need to do. And then we just schedule, and people don't even ask now, like, oh, that's 3 weeks away. At first they were like 3 weeks, but it's a way that we can be sustainable. And when people hear we work with a set number of clients at a time so that we can truly have the results we need. And right now that work will take place in a great way starting in 3 weeks. And right now we need to ask you to get these files ready for us and this to fill out first. People are like, sweet, I'll be on it, right? And so all of a sudden they're really pumped when 2 weeks, something opens up. But before I was just kind of like, whatever it takes to get someone on board. And I was saying no a lot too, but like you said, it's got to be a win-win. So
it has to be. And, you're right in that line of time, because if you think about it, like March occurred, and then we're like April, May, June, kind of like resorting things out and taking the action they took. And then you go July, August, September, right? And that's typically like when I've watched and observing behaviors of humans, like, 90 days, someone can sprint, right? Then they usually come up for air for a little bit. And whether you realize you did it or not, there probably was like a weekend where you maybe...
it was a big June day.
See, there you go. So there you hit it. Now you do another 90 days. And now, even if you tried to push past it in October, now you're like, and look, and here we are the first week of November. So you probably already decided this last week. So October didn't work. You're like, oh, I'm done with this, because you did 2 90-day sprints. And now your body is done with that.
Most people are feeling right now, whether it's gone well or not. I feel like we have to get to that place right now. And that's why I love what you're doing this Thursday. I saw it was just like, this is perfect. It's like, how do we reshape our new structure so that our life is built and then the business around it? And one of the things that just anyone watching is that, like, when I first talked with Steve 3 years ago, I have been planning on building mentorship programs for years. And for teenagers, I had a great mentor who shaped my life. And so Steve's like, so why aren't you mentoring anyone right now? And I'm like, well, I'm growing this business and this is the plan. And here's the steps. He's like, why don't you just start right now? And like, it's so silly, but it's like, you're right. And listen, it's so amazing. I started mentoring a kid in 2017, after talking with Steve and on one of our first, it was our first conversation. At the time, this kid, he had all D's and F's, was really struggling. I haven't done anything except for be there every Thursday for him for the last 3 years, right? That's just every Thursday we hang out. Right now, he has straight A's. He's 80th in his class in all of high school as a sophomore. And I haven't been like tutoring him or helping him with homework, but like somewhere along the way, he started caring a lot more about his outcome. And I swear so many of us are waiting for something, right? Like something. It's like we get to create the universe around us. That's the beauty of it. No matter what your belief is, whether it's 100%, it's you are a creator. And so, what do you want to create? You know, like what do you want to create?
And let's pick at this creation right here in this moment, because one, I know that you're going to succeed in creating your ideal work week because you've already been up against everything in 2020 and you figured it out. How could you not figure out how to run your business in the ideal week? It's just another form of pressure that's self-imposed because you're choosing to say, hey, and even when we love what we do, and I know you love what you do, that's actually an easy way for us to become workaholics because we actually love what we do. And I do the same thing. So I have to say, no, I also love my family. I also love to be outdoors. I also like to sleep. You know, I like these other things. So I've got to start working those in. So I know that you're going to be able to do that. And it's actually that pressure. But the first thing comes from choice, choosing that we can make that choice and then start looking at how are we going to do it. But if you don't put that pressure on you, I've often said, if you give yourself all the hours in the day to do a job, most likely you'll take up all those hours.
Yeah. Well, and I think a great way to do it for people is literally to start, because a mentor was doing this right now with me. I actually literally get to talk to a spiritual entity that's channeled through a guy 2 times a week right now. They're like pure love. It's crazy. And they are like a little child because they're in complete flow all the time and they love everything. They love everything. They're like, when we do laundry, when we're in Drew's body, we fold the laundry and we don't think about anything else besides the laundry. And then when we when we do because they do chores through Drew, like when they're talking to people, they just talk with people 3 days a week. They're channeled through this guy. Anyways, long story short, they were like, let's do some math together. We love math. And they literally just mapped out my hours in every day and then asked how many hours do I have for myself? And they were like, so what we're learning is that Chris devotes himself to his kids, his wife, and his business and has no time for Chris. Like they're a very childlike being. And they're like, do you know how much you can give to anyone if you don't have yourself? Right? None. And you are running on empty, feeling like you can fill people up. You can't. And it's so weird because they had me do this exercise where it was like, that is like, if anyone hasn't done this yet, just track really quick for a few days, like in a given week, how many hours you spend from the time you wake up, the time you go to sleep, and how many of those hours actually do you have like something in it life-giving that's for you. The second thing though was then they just basically had me do this and I know this is very similar to your work, Steve, is like, and we've done this in the past, is they had me do this thing that I found very difficult. I still haven't been able to do it. What does it mean to put Chris first? Right? What does it mean to put me first? I was raised in a really conservative, like church environment, right? Where like putting yourself first is wrong. And I think most people have heard their whole life putting yourself first is wrong. And that's often why we're in this state, is like, if I put myself first and I am in love with myself, like so in love with myself that I like really, really do things that are good for me, I am a much better father, husband, and person for my clients, right? And so this like really crazy thing of like, what are all the things that I love to do and how am I going to have hours to do it? And like, it's a weird transition because at first people don't fully get it. If they're used to you giving a ton all the time and you start taking more time for yourself, at first they're like, okay, but then you show back up and you have so much more energy, right? You have so much more life. Yeah.
It's absolutely the truth, and because we look at selfish as a really bad thing, and it goes by how you define that. But if you look at it by just water, if we had 2 cups of water, if I had it right now right in front of me, but if I have, and one is us and it has no water in it, how can you pour any water into someone else, right? Or if you're giving them the droplets of it, right? And and this is not okay. So if you fill yourself up, you're going to actually be able to give more. So it really is, um it's really the opposite. The more that you give to yourself, so like every morning I meditate and I exercise because that gives me more energy. If I don't move my body, I can feel that energy wean off. And just a quick one, and I know we're almost out of time, and I do want to ask you at least one more question. But the thing that I find is, when I first started meditating, my wife did look at me and say, "Oh, now you're going to do this," because I was already working a lot, and so now you're going to do one more thing. And I had to
Yeah.
veto that because I knew in my heart that I needed to sit with myself because I had not prior to that. So it was giving myself space. And I even inside my family unit had pushback. And then shortly after that, like I can't remember how many months into it, my son was quite young at the time. And we were having a Sunday, kind of like a brunch. And my son looked at me and said, "Dad, did you meditate today?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I can tell." And then my wife looked at me and she said, "Me too." And then it's totally switched to, "You should go meditate." And you should, because then they realized how much more whole I was. And in personal growth, I thought I was trying to become someone better, Chris, but I realize now it's actually letting go of all the things I thought I was supposed to be and just be Steve. And by allowing that to come, I've been able to help more people. And so I do believe in what you're saying. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help anybody. And we want to go to one other metaphor really quick. If you're on a commercial plane, anybody that's been on a flight, if that oxygen mask comes, you're told to put it on your face first. And that's why, because if you're not breathing, if you can't breathe, how can you help anyone else? Right. And so at those simple metaphors, I'm 100% on board with what. I'm just curious, one more thing, and you and I could talk for hours, and it's so awesome to see all the spiritual work you're doing right now. Because one more ad, and then the last question. I have been noticing my chewing more. I've been doing cacao ceremonies. I have cacao right now in this mug I had right before. So just 100% cacao. And every day I'm thinking of what I'm grateful for as I'm sipping every bit. And I have a little bit left, and I'm going to enjoy it after this and be grateful for our conversation. But I will tell you, I've been like so more intentional about my food, slowing down at every meal because I was putting more hours in like you. And so I would at least give myself that time to be grateful for where this food came from and think about it. And that mindfulness, and you could call it a spiritual sense to it, has really allowed me to slow down. These are things that we have to consume. So drinking water, being thankful for that, like feeling the water, because these are things we have to do every day. And so when I do that, it helps me to slow down. And
Mm.
and like I said, you and I definitely want to have you on the podcast as well, because then that's more of like an hour conversation and we'll have to schedule that. But I guess I'm curious for my last thing. Out of all the things that you've learned from me, if you were to pick like one thing that's been the biggest, I'm curious. What's been the greatest thing that you've taken away from our relationship, brother?
There's a lot, but I mean, more than anything, it's just to say that you can build your life and surround it, and you don't have to wait until you're successful and then you can do it. It's actually counterintuitive, but the happier you are, the better you'll be at drawing in your ideal clients, right? So the thing is, it's just so beautiful, and it's such a realization that most people don't realize is that you can focus on an energy of what you'll have. Like, say you're like, I want to make $60,000 a month. It's like, cool. What would it feel like to do that? And then you can feel that now. Your body actually doesn't know the difference whether it's actually happening or not. And most people are like, I can only feel that when I get there. But it's not. You can feel it now. And when you feel that way, you actually draw it into you. So everything is this counterintuitive thing. And so, Steve, like, I feel like you are a great, like, contrarian in certain ways to say, like, yeah, that's bullshit. Like, what everyone's telling you, that's not true, right? And you had to, like, do it the hard way. And we don't all have to do it the hard way before we realize, like, um, we can build our business, our life, and then build the business around it. The happier we are, the more our business will grow. That's absolutely the key.
It's absolutely the key. And one thing that you said back, just to highlight, at first when you told people they had to wait 3 weeks, at first there was maybe some adversity, and that might have been inside yourself because you're even wondering if they were going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
But then once you became confident that this is the way that it was, now no one's complaining. This is a mirroring universe. So whatever shows up inside of ourselves, it's going to show up in our clients too. So, as you, relax into that, it will become. And so I think, what we have from our conversation really quick is that, one, choose what you want from your life right now, even if you don't know how you're going to have it, but then do what Chris just said. Imagine yourself, even if you have to close your eyes, just imagine, like a vision board inside your head of what it is, and go walk around in yourself in that, and then come back and see the 1 or 2 decisions that you need to make today. Because you don't do all of it at once. Chris is making all these amazing changes in business, but I guarantee he didn't do all of them back in March. It's been an evolution. So pick one thing to focus on right now. And I can't express my gratitude enough, Chris. And he and I, we've been doing stuff, we haven't caught up. So this is our chance to catch up a little bit at the same time. So I'm so happy to see you and see where you are, and to hear your voice here on the show. And like I said, I'm real about getting you on the podcast so we can talk for a good hour and talk about all the changes. I would love to do that. So I so appreciate having you on the show, Chris.
Yeah, Steve, it's so good to be with you. It's always good to connect. It's just wonderful to be here.
Beautiful. And congratulations on all your success. And I know the impact in the lives that you're making. And congratulations to mentoring the youth that you are mentoring. And I'm so glad that impact happened. What another person's life has been impacted. So such a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, we're every Tuesday at 2:15. And you like what Chris just said, you have to make choices in your life. Choose what you want, and you will have more business and more life at the same time. We look forward to seeing you next week.